You should never negotiate against yourself. And let me give you a real-life personal example. I was once presented with the opportunity to conduct a lunch and learn workshop for a company's employees. I was in talks with this company that I was hoping would hire me. And during our call, they asked, "What would you charge for this presentation?" I kept my husband's sage advice in mind, and I said, "Well, can you tell me a little bit more about the group I'll be speaking to, and what are the physical surroundings like? Where are you located?" And these questions helped me to pivot off of their conversation. And then a little later, I asked, "So what is your budget for this talk?" Well, as it turns out, they offered me much more money than I would have charged. And this not only taught me that my strategy, all right, fine, my husband's strategy was the way to go, but it also gave me a boost to then increase my rates. Because if my rates were on my media kit, that part of the conversation would have never happened. So I was really glad that I didn't include rates in my kit, which they did review before they called me. Well, hey there. Welcome to the Media Savvy Podcast. I'm your host, Taub-Dix. I've been in the media for, more than 30 years, and I've done thousands of interviews for every media platform you could imagine. Those interviews helped me to become an award-winning author, a media trainer, and a nutrition expert. The reason why I created this podcast is because I want to bring you what I wished I knew when I started out. The Media Savvy Podcast will take you behind the scenes where the best in the business, from seasoned journalists, producers, speech coaches, podcasters, and social media superstars, will be sharing their secrets that help them get their names in the news, to show you how building your reputation in media can also boost your business. We're here to share our successes, our strategies, and our setbacks, all to help you cut the line and navigate your own journey. This isn't just any podcast, by the way. It's your backstage pass to finding your voice and using it to lead and influence others. I'm on a mission to empower you, to have the confidence and tools you'll need to shine in the spotlight. Are you ready? Please subscribe to this show on your favorite podcast channel. We'd love if you'd leave us comments. And now it's time to get you media savvy. Welcome. Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to the Media Savvy Podcast. I'm your host, Taub-Dix, and today we are unpacking a topic that I get asked a lot of questions about. And the topic is what you should include and what you should leave out of your press kit, and whether you should even have a press kit or not. I think you should have a press kit. So let's talk about what they are and what goes in them. Okay, so whether you're promoting a product or you're launching a book or you're highlighting your services, your press kit should be well crafted, and it could really make a big difference in your connections with a brand, a producer, or a reporter. So let's dive into what's essential to include and what you should leave out to ensure that your media kit stands out for all the right reasons. All right, so first of all, the name. A media kit is also called a press kit, and it's essential that your professional portfolio is in here because this is what journalists, bloggers, potential partners, brands, or even investors will see and learn about you. It's kind of like your automatic brochure. It's a packaged set of promotional materials that provides a snapshot of what you and your business offers. And it's tailored to show interest in partnering with you, hopefully even grabbing some media attention. And just in case you thought creating a media kit was overwhelming, I'm going to also tell you something else that you are not going to be very happy to hear. And that's that you might even need more than one media kit. Let me give you an example. You may want to have one press kit for media like journalists, producers, and then a separate one for brands and PR agencies. You could certainly put this all into one document, which I have. I have everything all together, and it's on my website, but that depends upon who you're looking to attract. What I really want to point out here is that this is your kit. That means that, of course, you have to be truthful, but you don't have to add anything that you don't want to add. So we'll talk more about this later on, but just know that this document is meant to help you shine. So if you have press kit envy, meaning you look at other people's press kits and you think, oh, theirs is better than mine, or they have things in theirs that I don't have in mine. You know what? It is, as I said before, your kit. So let's talk about what you need to include, what you don't need to include, and then you could figure out what actually gels best with your own personality. Okay, so what are some essentials that you should definitely include? You should include your bio. And start with a compelling bio that includes not just your history, current history, but also your current role, your expertise, and what makes you unique. This is not just a resume, I want to point out. It is your story. And if you make it more like a story, it will be more interesting, as opposed to just bulleted items. Include your contact information. Surprisingly, so many people forget to put this in. So make sure that your kit has clear and direct ways in which people can contact you, or if you have a manager or a PR representative, how they could be contacted. You should include your website, your email address, and don't forget to include your phone number. Media kits really need phone numbers, and if you want to work with reporters, for example, be sure to put your cell number in there for those last-minute interviews. Include some high-resolution photos, like professional photos of yourself, your products, your book, or anything relevant to your brand. These should be downloadable and ready for press to use. I also like including, in addition to a professional headshot, something that is a little bit more fun. Maybe a picture of you laughing or cooking or doing something that reflects your own interests and kind of highlights your personality. You should also include some press information in there or news highlights. So provide any relevant press releases and a curated list of previous media coverage that showcases your authority and your experience. And the reason why I say curated list is because, as I've mentioned in other episodes of this podcast, I get interviewed by reporters just about every week. But not all of my interviews are so stellar that I'd want to include them in a press kit. So be sure to include the ones that really make you shine, especially when you're the only one being interviewed throughout the story. I love that. Okay, product information and services. Include detailed descriptions, again, not too much detail, of what you're offering, like your book or your course. Include the key features and any unique selling points. And of course, you could also include a photo, like the cover of your book. You also might want to include testimonials or endorsements, because positive reviews from clients or endorsements from credible sources like previous brands you worked with, or your students if you have a course, they could all significantly boost your credibility. This is super important because if you're hoping to work with a new brand, let's say, you want to include a glowing quote from a brand that you already collaborated with so that they could know how wonderful it is to partner with you. I'm really not being sarcastic. I think that this is really important because having personal testimonials says so much about you and your personality. And it makes a big difference than someone just checking out your website. It also might be helpful to include frequently asked questions. A well thought out FAQ section could kind of preemptively answer common queries that reporters might have, and it would save them a lot of time, save producers time, brands time, or anyone who's reading your press kit. You could also, of course, then take the opportunity to pick out the questions that make you shine the most. And of all of the above, of course, it depends upon how long you want your press kit to be, because the shorter and sweeter, the better. So let's talk about what to leave out of your press kit. Now, let me say that this is my opinion. It doesn't mean that this is what you have to do. It doesn't mean that there's a right or a wrong here. You need to know yourself. So I am just giving you my opinion of this. I would leave out any outdated material and keep the content fresh. So remove anything that is really old news or no longer relevant. So yeah, there's no need to mention your GPA if you graduated 20 years ago. Anyway, I don't think it's important to put your GPA, even if you just graduated. So I would leave out irrelevant information. Also, don't overwhelm people with this press kit. Avoid clutter. Too much text or too many images could be overwhelming. So keep it as concise as possible so that people can navigate your press kit in a clear way. Personal information. So for some people, it's, TMI. I would keep personal details to a minimum. Yeah, sometimes they add warmth to your bio, maybe one or two little facts about you, but avoid overly personal or sensitive information that may not enhance your professional image. And as I mentioned before, keep out anything that's irrelevant that doesn't strengthen your brand. The other thing is be careful about the words that you use. Over and over in this podcast, I mentioned how important it is to speak the language of your audience. So keep your language clear and accessible and avoid industry jargon that may not be understood by everybody who's reading this press kit. Now, here are a few topics that may be controversial. The question is, should you include pricing and rates in your kit? And I have lots of thoughts about this, which I am going to share with you. And you may disagree. I know that I see pricing so often in press kits, but these are my thoughts. All right. Why would you put your prices in your press kit? Well, including your prices could project transparency and honesty, which could build trust with potential clients and partners. It also, kind of cuts to the chase. It's efficient. It may help filter out prospects who may not be in your pricing bracket. So therefore, it saves time for both parties, and it allows you to focus on prospects that suit your particular needs better. After all, you should always, always, always get what you deserve. Then there's also positioning. Your rates can position your brand within the market. Higher rates could signal premium quality or specialized expertise, while competitive pricing can attract a broader audience. So keep those in mind. But when it comes to pricing, there are a lot of things that could be negative. There's one thing that my attorney, who also happens to be my husband, taught me very early on, and that's that you should never negotiate against yourself. I'm going to repeat it because it's so important. You should never negotiate against yourself. And let me give you a real life personal example. I was once presented with the opportunity to conduct a lunch and learn workshop for a company's employees. I was in talks with this company that I was hoping would hire me. And during our call, they asked, "What would you charge for this presentation?" I kept my husband's sage advice in mind, and I said, "Well, can you tell me a little bit more about the group I'll be speaking to, and what are the physical surroundings like? Where are you located?" And these questions helped me to pivot off of their conversation. And then a little later, I asked, "So what is your budget for this talk?" Well, as it turns out, they offered me much more money than I would have charged. And this not only taught me that my strategy, all right, fine, my husband's strategy was the way to go, but it also gave me a boost to then increase my rates. Because if my rates were on my media kit, that part of the conversation would have never happened. So I was really glad that I didn't include rates in my kit, which they did review before they called me. Having your rates on your media kit also limits negotiations. So publicly available pricing can limit the flexibility in pricing negotiations that you could have with clients or potential partners when you're actually on the call with them. Because sometimes a client may have in mind something that they have as their budget or what they want to pay you, but then they could be so taken by you and really want to work with you during the call that they may up their rates after they speak with you, as opposed to seeing something that you had in black and white on your press kit, which was a lot lower than you otherwise might get. The other thing is that prices get outdated. They may change, based upon market conditions, costs, your particular financial situation. So if you put prices in your press kit, then they could be outdated very, very quickly. And that might provide a lot of misinformation for the brand that's looking to hire you. Also, that could cause you to undervalue your services and your prices. And that is not a good thing. The other thing is that when you put your prices on your media kit and that's available on your website, then it could create a competitive disadvantage. Competitors can see your pricing and potentially undercut your rates, and that would position them more strategically in the market and perhaps would be even more of a competition than you realize. Another thing that you should consider about putting it in your press kit are your social media numbers. Okay, for some people, there are a lot of benefits to putting social media numbers in your press kit. They demonstrate your influence and your reach. If you have a high follower count or your engagement rates are high, then that could really impress potential partners or sponsors, and it showcases your ability to engage with a significant audience. It also is social proof. Robust social media metrics, they serve as social proof that your content is valued and your audience is engaged, which can be a persuasive tool in media and partnership discussions. And it also might attract collaborations. Brands that are looking for influencers or thought leaders, they often seek out people who have high numbers. And this is something that I've been seeing more and more. Remember, it doesn't mean that this is what your value is or what you're worth or how good you are at what you do. These are just numbers, vanity numbers. But if you do have a lot of numbers, they really can be helpful. So what are some of the cons of showing your social followings? Well, there could be a lot of misinterpretations. If your numbers are not as high as those of your competitors, or they don't meet an expectation of the industry standard or the brand that's looking at you, then it could negatively impact the perceptions of your brand's popularity or your influence or your value. Emphasizing your follower counts or likes, it also could shift the focus away from more meaningful engagement metrics, like your audience interactions, or your experience in the field, or your authenticity. Those characteristics provide deeper insights into what you're about and your audience loyalty and your brand strength. The other thing is privacy and security, which we really need to be careful about these days. Displaying large numbers might attract spam or malicious activities aimed at exploiting your social media profile. So these are things you need to take into consideration. So when deciding whether to include these elements in your media kit or not, you need to know your audience. Tailor the contents of your media kit to the expectations of the needs of the audience you are really trying to target. This is why I said you may need more than one press kit. If transparency is valued highly in your industry, and I don't know when it wouldn't be, then including pricing could be beneficial. But remember, as I mentioned, that could also hurt you as a professional. So be careful about whether you include the prices or not. Also ensure that the information supports your particular business objectives. For example, if media visibility and brand partnerships are a priority, then showcasing strong media metrics could be advantageous. On the other hand, your expertise in the field could be so much more valuable to the brand, but your social media numbers may not reflect that value. Again, as I mentioned, it's important to update your press kits regularly so that this way you are up to date and your information doesn't seem stale. And also, this is so important for you, especially if you have something new that came up. Ultimately, the decision to include pricing and social media numbers in your media kit should align with your overall branding and your marketing strategy. So, definitely weigh the pros and cons of all of these variables that I spoke about with you. It's funny, but right before I was ready to record this, I took a look at my own press kit on my website to see what it looked like. I haven't checked this in a long time. And guess what? I noticed that I never mentioned my podcast on there because I haven't updated my own press kit in a long time. So I'm a little bit embarrassed to tell you this, but I'm also being transparent about how important something like this. So you could be sure that after I finish recording this, I'm writing to my web guy and asking him about updating my press kit. I'll leave my press kit in the show notes so you'll know where to find me. Or you could just look at my website and look at the drop down and look for my press kit and you'll see yourself. If you look right now, I'm just letting you know my podcast isn't on there. All right, so kind of in summary, creating a standout media kit is all about balance. You want to provide enough intriguing information to spark interest while also keeping it focused and professional, always professional. So think about your press kit or media kit, whatever you want to call it, as your business's first impression in these interactions. And I want to thank you so much, as always, for tuning into my Media Savvy podcast. I hope that you'll subscribe and please be sure to leave a comment. I really want to hear your thoughts. It means a lot to me. Tell a friend about it. And if you like this episode, I hope that you'll just listen in because I have so much more coming up. Until the next time, keep your messages clear and compelling. And hey, you are looking very media savvy today, so keep it up. Bonnie signing off, and thanks so much for being here. Bye-bye now.